Hello and welcome to our Recruiting Blogs community members, and thank you so much for joining us today for our presentation entitled Digital Social Mobile Attracting Diversity to Your Talent Pool. My name is Daniel Fogel and I'm the Vice President of Content and Community here at Recruiting Daily. Before we get started, I'd like to just quickly review a couple of housekeeping items and let you know how you can participate in today's session. First, all the attendees have joined in listen-only mode and will not have the ability to speak directly with our presenters during today's webinar session. We do encourage everyone to ask as many questions as you have using your questions pane. Simply type in your question and click send. At the end of the presentation, we will have some time set aside for a question and answer session with our presenters, and we will try to take as many of the questions as we have time for. Also, feel free to use our hashtag, which is hashtag videosis, VIDEOIS on Twitter, and we at Recruiting Blogs are going to be tweeting along as well. Also, feel free to follow us at Recruiting Blogs if you are not currently doing so. And we're going to be attempting to provide responses to all the questions, all the tweets, everything that comes in as much as we can. We will try to track down answers for you. Second, you have joined today's webinar listening through your computer's speaker system by default. This means that today's presentation can be heard by using your computer speakers. If you would prefer to listen to the webinar using your phone, simply locate that audio pane on the right side of your screen and select Use Telephone. The dial-in information and access code will then be displayed. But we at Recruiting Blogs would like to thank Digi-Me for sponsoring today's content and say thank you for your support of this very important topic in the workplace. But now it's my great honor to be able to introduce you to our very special guest presenters today, Sean Beaver and Lindsay Stanton, and I'm going to tell you just a little bit more about them before we get started here. Sean has over 10 years in the recruiting industry as a record-setting headhunter in Chicago, Los Angeles, Boston, Kansas City, and San Francisco. And he's proudly served his country in support of Operation Desert Storm with the historic U.S. Army's 1st Infantry Division. Lindsay has facilitated relationships with 19 partners, including the largest recruitment advertising agencies, global recruitment process outsourcers, and staffing firms. These partnerships magnify the organization's reach into the global Fortune 1000, providing an effective and innovative solution to the largest global employers, including Verizon, USG Corporation, and the Hartford Insurance Company. But it's a great pleasure to be able to welcome both Lindsay and Sean onto the program today, and a great treat to be able to have them share their perspective with all the members today. So, Lindsay, Sean, thank you so much for coming on. Members, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate everybody joining us today. And Sean and I's goal is to provide you with some powerful data points, some usable strategies, and valuable takeaways so that you can leverage digital, social, and mobile to attract niche talent and diverse talent. So in order to start a successful strategy, you have to identify your current gaps. And to gauge your company's workforce, your managers need to really conduct a survey in respect to their different departments and get a count of the different groups of people that are part of your organization currently. You can compare these results with local demographics, and then by comparing your workforce with the community around you at large, you should be able to identify groups that are really underrepresented or maybe even overrepresented in your organization. There are a range of resources and organizations that you can turn to provide demographic information, but definitely would recommend the U.S. Census Bureau and the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. They update the data every month, so you can stay pretty on target and make sure that 92% of your organization is going to really have that diverse workforce, and it's enhancing your business performance, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, and that's why we're all looking to attract diversity to our organizations, is really to make sure that we perform better as a business and we deliver to our customers in the way they expect to be delivered. And it's not just about where you're posting your job that's important, and we'll drill into some details, but it's really about how. Instead of just advertising job vacancies over a wide net area and hoping that you attract as many candidates as possible, you really need to identify the gaps and target specific talent pools. So that's why identifying the current gaps is so important, because Where you have clear gaps in your workforce, I would definitely recommend consider advertising positions on specific websites. So, for example, if you want to attract more disabled people, make sure that you're targeting specific websites, niche websites, blogs, communities that are targeted specifically to that audience. If you want to attract an older workforce, for instance, you might want to target specific online publications geared towards people 50 and above. Just keep in mind that the job listing needs to be visible by the whole community, but it's really good to be able to specifically target, and you can use the right technology to do it pretty easily, but to really specifically target those underrepresented groups.
Yeah, and I would say, great point, Lindsay, for Kiewit, the changes in the employee market suggest that most employers are going to need to develop, and we recognize this, more recruitment and retention strategies to achieve our organizational goals, and organizations like us that are challenged with the same things. And I think it's for us, it started with the job descriptions and really looking holistically at those. We see a lot of changes in the domestic and the global markets that we compete in for talent and to execute our work, and it suggests that companies like Kiewit need to understand the diversity in order to succeed in the business that we compete in and to meet our increasingly diverse global customer needs, because after all, we're not just in the U.S. and Canada, we've got operations outside of those markets, and we need to value diversity because it creates an environment where everyone is respected and valued for their contributions and their organization's success. For us, it's in our success matrix, it's not just a fad. Our job postings, as a result, are all under review, and it's a critical part of our partnership with the Digi-Me and this initiative in general.
And that brings up a really good point, Sean, because obviously the easiest way to attract a diverse workforce is to show it. And video really allows you to put that foot forward and show the candidates. They're able to see and feel that they're going to fit in your organization and what your culture is all about. So video job postings really allow you to kind of tell your story, both who you are as a culture and also to properly represent yourself visually and through language. So I know with a lot of our clients, we can actually run the video in multiple languages, and the video will render based on the browser setting of the candidate. So it definitely instantly relates to that candidate and does a much better job of telling the story and allowing the candidate to self-select. One thing that most people aren't aware of is that candidates will actually learn and retain 60% more critical information about your company and the skills required for the position versus text. So, when you think about being able to tell your story and have it, listened and heard to 60% better, that's a pretty important statistic.
That's right, and the point I would add to that is, we consider our markets in not just North America, Canada, French markets, French-speaking markets, as well as our expansion in Mexico and even some of the Pacific Rim organizations that we're supporting. We're looking at all these expanding markets from a diverse candidate standpoint, and additionally our college, our entry level, as well as our experience pipelines in terms of talent attraction has got to be sensitive to the demographics that are hitting us across these mediums. And what I would say about our partnership is that this allows us to socialize our incredible opportunities in very unique ways that we've never really seen before, and we're seeing that content consumed at a much greater rate than just the traditional text-based mediums that so many corporate America's advertisements are out there hitting it. And I think that's really the gem in this initiative for us.
And that's such an important point, Sean, because so many organizations now are really trying to compete and differentiate themselves across, their competitors, because right now with unemployment rates so low and they keep going down, ultimately you need to get your brand recognition out there for the right reasons and improve candidate engagement, because ultimately that leads to a better quality of hire. And all these things can work in tandem, resulting in a reduced cost per hire and time to fill too. So with that increased level of understanding and the self-selection, in addition to viral spread that you get through video with mobile and social, and we'll dig into that a little bit further on in the presentation, but all that really results in you getting the right candidate at a lower cost ultimately.
That's right, and we have those same challenges at Kiewit. I mean, for everybody that are listening in, I mean, we have those same challenges. We wanted to do something about it that made our brand more innovative, less stagnant in the recruiting process. You know, that was probably the same by and large if you really took an honest look at it in the last several decades. I mean, post and pray is really where a lot of companies are caught up, and so we wanted to respond to a lot of our operations leadership that asked us what new and innovative things we're doing to tell our incredible talent stories that are diverse and across a lot of different spectrums, and really video in the recruitment space just made sense for us, especially, you know, after being an early adopter in video interviewing with Kiewit, we saw what kind of strides we could make, and now to see this more on the recruitment marketing side and being able to adopt, you know, more of a digital, social, video-enabled, text-based, mobile-enabled solution, and the metrics that back it up, for us has been a powerful journey thus far. We're just starting out, but it's been a great initiative, and I'd encourage everybody to look at it the same way.
And you brought up an important point about reputation. Reputation is so important and definitely a differentiator, especially when you're trying to get that passive job seeker. According to Glassdoor, 69% of candidates will not even consider taking a job at a company if it has a bad reputation. So, and 80% will turn to social media to find out about your reputation and your brand. I think one thing that we've seen is when we're working with clients early on, sometimes they're scared of video and the impact that it can have because they're used to the negative imagery, and, you know, maybe if it's user-generated content that's, you know, reflected badly on their brand. But the one thing that you need to know is that video actually can be a really powerful platform to combat any negative messaging, especially if you're using the right technology tools that are going to allow you to show up before any of that negative branding. So even though video can seem a little bit scary, if you're trying to overcome brand images, or even if just maybe you're just not as recognized, we work with a lot of companies that are global employers that people that aren't necessarily familiar with. It's not a name that just rolls off your tongue. So it can be a really powerful tool to allow you to control the content that candidates are seeing when they start that search process, especially through social media.
Yeah, that's right. I would agree. And our brand is such that it's important that, you know, we at least in the recruitment and selection process have hired an individual dedicated to that strategy and to really increase our recruitment and our employment brand presence. And I would say that's both internal and external, and that role is going to help with the innovation strategies that continue to develop around not just video, but the social, mobile, and all the outreach that we're doing from a diversity and inclusion standpoint to really enhance our pipelines of candidates, to enhance our quality of hire, build the brand awareness about Kiewit and the incredible opportunities that we have, and really maximize our recruitment resources, you know, through the development of a best-in-class marketing plan that deals with specific recruitment campaigns. Whereas I think in the past our marketing efforts have tended to focus on, in our business, helping us allow each other to win work in each of our different districts and verticals, and we really needed a talent brand focus, and so our program is going to remain simple, but it's going to strive to provide the best recruitment communications that we can possibly engage, and the best media solutions providers, the best capabilities in helping to set our brand in a league of its own. I think that's really what we're after, and, you know, quite frankly, we're seeing what a lot of people are doing and running the other way, and I think that's maybe what they're not doing too, because I think there's those in the space that are stagnant and not doing anything, and there's those in the space that are maybe doing too much. We're trying to keep it simple and execute really well on the wildly important goal of this digital strategy around recruitment.
And I think that brings up a good point, that it's really important to be authentic to who you are and your culture. You can get your messaging out there in a compelling way, along with information about your culture that can really be kind of a secret magnet to pulling in, like you mentioned, that candidate pipeline and using it to attract passive talent and getting them just interested in who you are as an organization. You know, maybe set the job specific part of it aside for a second, but just thinking about pulling them in. This is a really interesting statistic. I think 63% of LinkedIn users who are not actively seeking a new opportunity admitted that given the right message, they could be, you know, interested. So you can definitely, you have the ability to trigger their interest in your organization if your message is compelling enough. And it doesn't have to be really complicated either. I recommend that embedding your video into your ATS is ultimately the easiest and kind of the right technology to allow you to show up at the top of your postings, and you know, people are much more likely to click on a thumbnail image of video. That's why we're all drawn to YouTube when we do a search for any topic on Google. It's the same thing for our candidates. So if you can have a visual representation of your job, especially embedded in your ATS so that it's carried out throughout your entire sourcing strategy, that's definitely best case scenario and going to allow you to get the most bang for your buck to have that image.
That's right, and that's a big deal for Kiewit too, Lindsay, and for everybody on the call. It's a realization that we have that we got a lot of work to do in this area. Even today, we've got, you know, a whole series of decentralized operations that we're continuing to evaluate the manner in which we represent our positions online, and we're at the beginning of a long but important journey that recognizes that we need to improve the candidate experience, the ability to engage with our candidates over more mediums than maybe what we traditionally would think of, and their impression of Kiewit in that process.
And you can also utilize tools that will provide intelligence on where your candidates are coming from. So many recruiting strategies can be pretty one-dimensional. You're putting your position out there and hoping the right candidates find you. But really, when you're talking about attracting people, especially with that low unemployment rate, you really need to be more proactive and attract top diverse talent where they're going already. And so it's so important to be able to learn and track that behavior so that you know where your messaging is going and if your messaging is dynamic, because ultimately if your message is dynamic, they're going to share it for you, and then you're going to have insight into the sites that they're actually engaging with your content.
Yep. And for Kiewit, Lindsay, I think search engine optimization for us is really the ability, you know, for us to optimize the way those positions are effective out in the different mediums that we choose, and it's really the ability to share our incredible opportunities that are now being underutilized. And I think, you know, some of these video tools that you know, I guess we're referring to are really an innovative way for us to do that, and quite frankly, we're doing something about it that we hadn't done before. And so it's one of those things that, you know, finally as we start this journey, I think we're all recognizing this has been a lot easier than maybe what probably several people on the phone right now or listening onto the webinar are thinking. This is this elephant of a project for most recruitment campaigns can be broken down one bite at a time, and I think you'll find it an enjoyable experience and one that will innovate your you know, your campaigns big time.
Okay, so the right people have found your job, hopefully. What roadblocks are you putting up? I also recommend, we had mentioned at the beginning of the call, kind of doing some internal intel on what types of gaps you have from a diversity perspective, but you also want to make sure that your process isn't frustrating. So I definitely recommend to employers that they start from the beginning and do a search for their own jobs and try to apply for them and find out, is it intuitive? And don't just do it off your computer, do it off your cell phone and your tablet, because a lot of times organizations find that it can be a pretty frustrating process, or you might even have different processes in place off of different websites. So, you know, are there consistency gaps that you need to true up? And you want to make sure that your process ultimately is seamless on any device and is difficult as that sounds like it can be, even if you're on, a recognizable ATS, I know there are some really good Band-Aids and tools out there that you can leverage as a bolt-on while the industry kind of catches up. So definitely recommend that you go in and kind of do that test internally for yourself.
Yeah, and I would say own bad processes too. I mean, where you're auditing things, get transparent. And I mean, at Kiewit, we call it being pleased but never satisfied. It's divine discontent. It's just that relentless pursuit of innovation. And we recognize that we had a bad process and we had significant gaps. And I think all of it was made with good intentions, but it was outdated and it was strained and lacked really the candidate perspective that I know this video representation of opportunities across multiple mediums has helped us recognize that there's significant steps we can do to not only get with the candidate consumer behavior, if you will, but also to innovate an otherwise stagnant process. And that's where I think the partnership has really done well for us to help us represent our opportunities well.
And part of it, as I mentioned, is kind of overcoming some of the technology gaps. So I think a lot of people in the HR community recognize that there's a gap on the mobile apply side, particularly with certain ATSs, but that doesn't mean that you can't meet the candidate expectations through, a bolt-on to your ATS. So I would suggest, don't just ignore the issue just because maybe your ATS is less than mobile friendly. There are some great bolt-on widgets like the one we've used with Kiewit, which allows candidates to actually be able to complete the apply process, and ultimately we've got multiple clients that are doing this. It's helping you build a database too. So it's basically like a light registration, and there are plenty of tools that you can do this, but it allows you to do a quick data capture from the candidate's perspective. You can grab their social media profile. It's very easy for them to have a pre-populated application form. Even just simple tools like allowing the candidates to upload resumes from file storage sites like Google Docs, because if they're coming in from their phone, they're not going to have access to a Word document. So just thinking about making that process that much more friendly, because if you're trying to reach that, purple squirrel, that niche talent that's so hard to get, you definitely don't want to create additional hurdles and make it difficult on the apply process. The other thing I would think that you really should consider, and certainly relevant to Kiewit's business, is if you have applicants that are constantly on the go or on their feet, i.e. Engineers, CDL drivers, obviously those are highly competitive right now. There's such a shortage in both of those areas. Again, you want to make it really easy and make sure that, ultimately, those people the chances are, since they are mobile, they're going to be coming in off their cell phone or a tablet. So make it a super easy, intuitive process for them.
Yeah, and I would say we knew this was a lacking effort for the organization, and I think we finally have at least one tool in the tool belt at our leisure that we can use and engage and help make progress in this arena. It's certainly not a silver bullet, but it definitely goes a long way at starting to make long overdue improvements on the candidate engagement piece. And if we don't get out there and tell our story, if we don't get out there and create an opportunity for folks to have a conversation, we're really going to underserve our recruitment strategy. And I think that's really the improvement that we've made and continue to make in this area.
So not only are you using the right job messaging to attract people, but most importantly, you also can use video, social, and mobile to keep candidates informed and engaged. So, ultimately back to Sean's comment about pipelining, you want to be able to pipeline for strategic roles like Kiewit's doing for their engineering positions, for instance, that require very specific expertise, and they need those people across the country in some relatively difficult rural markets. So keeping them, that passive talent, interested and engaged can be just as important as attracting them to begin with. So making sure that you're using, these tools to keep that engagement up.
Great point.
And then another good reason, you can teach skills, but you can't force a cultural fit. So that's why it's important to be both professional and authentic in your message. I think this is one thing that I think some organizations can struggle with when it comes to video, because you know, it's equally as important to be authentic in your message as it is to be professional. You know, I don't recommend, and I know most of the large brands we work with don't want to have too much, you know, user-generated type of content out there. They want consistent, predictable messaging that properly represents their company and their culture. So that's why the professional format can be really important. So let's talk about the vehicle to best attract a diverse workforce. Online video audiences are expected to double in 2016, reaching 1.5 million globally. That's according to a recent Cisco report. And when a candidate watches a video about a position, as I mentioned earlier, they're going to learn and retain 60% more information about that opening that you have. So this is a much clearer understanding and causes candidates to more accurately opt in or out of your application process based on fit. So ultimately, you're showing versus telling your position opening, and it's going to help you reduce the screen time, and you'll also see that 80% of candidates will actually start the job search process through Google. So if you're showing and telling your story, back to that imagery that I was talking about earlier, you're going to allow yourself to not only rank higher on a search when somebody types in keywords on Google, but you're also going to make it more compelling because they're going to see that thumbnail and they're going to be much more likely to click and find out if your position is interesting and relevant to them.
Yeah, and for Kiewit, I would say, you know, the reality is, as we've looked at search engine optimization specific to an actual position, we've seen a much higher response rate. We've seen, you know, higher application numbers, higher quality of applications. These are things that we probably didn't have a well-defined strategy in the past, but through this video tool, I would tell you, first of all, not only do the candidates come easier, but the managers love it. And you know, I think they, along with us, wanted more innovation more aggressively. And candidates see that we took the time to produce a nice, specific video specific to that role, and it's a 60-second to 90-second job blurb that's very high level. You know, it's not the high-level corporate videos that you might see on many corporate sites. This is telling the story about a specific position, and it's much more granular, and it's much more of a position description that's really told through video. And the fact is, we're seeing that description told at 7 times the rate of those that are just text-based descriptions out online. And so when we can combine the two and provide the search engine optimization, for us it's a win-win across the board. And so I would highly encourage folks to examine a little deeper marketing strategy for the recruitment campaigns through adoption of video, and it affects is not just your diversity and outreach campaigns, but all of your traditional positions that you house. I think all of them for Kiewit, we've identified the need to really inventory and automate and really optimize their effectiveness through the adoption of video.
And I think you bring up a really good point, Sean, because you know, probably one of the things that we all hear in the space is the biggest complaint on the candidate side can be about, you know, all the postings out there that aren't open. You know, they're not actual, valid, legitimate jobs. And, you know, to your point about making an investment, or, you know, visually making an investment, you know, if the candidate sees the position, they're going to think with that professional format that you are really representing a valid job opening.
That's right.
And I feel like there's so much conversation around search engine optimization in our space. So one thing I wanted to do today is really kind of break it down and talk about what is SEO and how does it work. To put it really simply, SEO is really the process in which people improve their website's ability to organically be found through search engines like Google. So what does that mean for your recruitment practice, and why is it important? Google and the other engines are basically going to rank your job messaging based on their algorithms and how relevant they're calculating your message to be. So what's important to Google? They look for a couple different things. They look for the keywords in your jobs and whether they match up with the searches that are commonly occurring. They are going to also look for whether or not you're a well-recognized brand, whether you're a heavily searched brand. Another really important factor is, are you mobile friendly? Is the content on your website mobile friendly? Do you have video? Video actually outranks text-based content on Google by 53 times. So that in and of itself, which you've probably noticed just pretty much typing in anything, YouTube will show up at the top of your search results, and that's due to the way that Google and the other engines are setting their algorithms. So you can really leverage that power behind video, behind mobile, and behind your brand to make sure that you're showing up at the top of a search. So for instance, we created a proprietary video player that allows our clients to instantly be recognized by the engines within the first few hours of going live. They're showing up on first page of a search when a candidate's typing keywords. And it's not just about showing up on the first page, it's also making sure that you're showing up on the first page for a relevant seeker, because you want to make sure that the terms that you're using in your video are specific to the requirements, especially for more strategic jobs, because you want to make sure that that matchmaking process is going to occur through Google's algorithms. Are going to connect you with the right relevant candidate.
That's right, and I'll tell you, it was mind-boggling to us and at how complex was this. I think we thought we were staring at a much more complex project than what we realized, and it was a lot easier than we thought to start this process. And I guess my advice to everyone would be to take search engine optimization serious. It alone, I think, can do so much to enhance your overall effectiveness. And when you combine that with the power of video, it really just helps put your recruitment campaigns in a different league. And you start seeing folks coming to your applications that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to tap into. And I think that's really the legacy that we're trying to leave, I think, through the adoption of not only our search engine optimization, but the adoptiveness of video.
And it really can just be the starting point to allowing you to go viral too. So as I mentioned earlier, with the right video technology, you can actually embed into your ATS. So that's going to allow you to push up higher on that search engine result too, because now every place that you're currently posting is going to search engine optimize, because now you've got a video posted in every job board you're using, every social site you're using, every aggregator you're showing up on. And then ultimately, that's just the starting point. So in order to go truly viral, you want easily shareable video content that can be tracked and has a call to action tied behind it. So you want to be able to see and have insight into where the candidates are really sharing your messaging. Are there niche talent pools showing up through certain social media sites, blogs, discussion groups that are really actively engaging with your content? That insight will provide you with really specific information as to how and where your job messaging is being shared, and then ultimately who's applying for your jobs and where are you hiring them from.
That's right, and I would also add that we've seen this time and time again by candidates telling us how impressive it is to see that the front end work we did to digitize and leverage video to make a very specific production about the position that they're applying for. Make no mistake, these productions are turned over with the aid of the script writing professionals that do this for a living in very quick manner. These are coming very, very fast, and we can turn these around at the speed of our business, which is critical for a big construction, engineering, and mining organization like Kiewit. And we really value that speed of turnaround. It's the ultimate measure of business effectiveness. And the social share piece for us is an even bigger plus, because it allows us the ability to, internally to leverage our pulse pages, and externally, specific position referrals, not just LinkedIn and Facebook, although those are key deliverables too, but we can now basically turn our operations folks with tools into foot soldiers in this war for talent, and provide them with adequate resources that they can go out and help tell our story as well, because after all, it's everyone's job in your organization to recruit, not just HR and recruitment, right? So this is an invaluable tool that we've realized is probably a lot easier to adopt than you think.
And that's so true. Not only, internally in your organization having people sharing the message, but again, having the candidates share your message is just such a huge validator of your content. JobBite conducted a nationwide survey looking to see for social networking trends and dynamics of job seeker populations. And the survey was done with about 1,300 participants in the U.S. and showed that 86% of job seekers have at least one of 6 online social networking accounts, including Facebook, LinkedIn. We're starting to see Google Plus show up on our clients' networks, our metrics now. Twitter, Instagram, even Pinterest can really be a powerful tool. And the data showed that the social job seekers are younger, they're more highly educated, and they're ultimately more likely to be a full-time employee. And they're candidates that are willing to share your job, which is ultimately the perfect third-party validation of your messaging, because they're going to be your in to getting into these niche communities and kind of finding these secret pools of talent. And with 86% of job seekers having a social profile and 4 out of 10 job seekers having at least 150 connections, it's really very powerful to be able to tap into those networks and to be able to see the data associated with it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you from Kiewit's perspective, I guess our view is if candidates or potential ones are having a conversation about our specific roles down to a very granular level, and or they're sharing them, it's a good thing, period. At the end of the day, it's all about marketing, it's all about position visibility, and that's really what we're trying to do. Less 30,000-foot main website driving campaigns and more down to the granular level where an independent department manager needs our help from a recruitment innovation standpoint more than they realize. And by us adopting tools like this, it's really helped us move that needle much more than we thought we would even 6 months ago.
And I think it's really important too to think about your job messaging from a consumer branding perspective. So I think we get kind of caught up in the HR world and think about you know, just content from a job perspective and recruitment only, but really ultimately our candidates are all consumers, and consumers are twice as likely to click on and share content that shows up on their social network through mobile devices as opposed to on their desktop. And I mean, I see this even with my own behavior. It's just so easy to quickly click and share something, especially a video virally on, you know, Facebook or Twitter, and that really can be a powerful tool to leverage for your recruitment strategy as well.
Yeah, and I would say too, Lindsay, we're realizing there's a lot more work we got to do to be ready for this continuing trend, but it's reality for us, and the candidate behaviors don't lie. I mean, they're very obvious when you start looking at where folks are coming from, how they're ending up on your site, and what the communications back are about how we're representing our opportunities. And I would definitely encourage everyone to look at more innovative ways to tell your stories, and in large part based on how candidates are coming to your front door.
This slide has a lot of data points on it, but Talent Board recently did a survey of 95,000 job seeker candidates in 2014, and it really is kind of a breakdown of, depending on who you're hoping to hire, you can determine which social networks really are the best, and where you can best engage with those people, which mediums they're going to respond to the best. So it really helps determine which social networks to post your jobs on in order to reach the desired type of candidate based on demographic and sociographic information.
Yeah, and the point I would make, Lindsay, would be that we use these video solutions as part of our program as those that are being able to reach all spectrums, right? It's a solution that can hit video, it can hit mobile, it can hit social, it can hit all of our traditional career site mediums that we operate in. And I think our long-term plan is to integrate, you know, the career site ads with the video, to your point earlier. And I think to us that's a 1-2 punch that no matter how they end up to the site, we're leveraged and ready for either consumer behavior to capitalize on those potential candidates.
Absolutely, and I know we're going to drill down into a few of your metrics reports a little bit later, Sean, too, but I think this is going to be a great starting point using data like this to figure out where and how to spend your time from a recruitment strategy perspective, but ultimately being able to track what's truly happening with your specific jobs, because one thing that we see is the behavior and where candidates are actively engaging with job content can switch dramatically just even based on market. So the hiring location and the websites that populate and are most effective from market to market can really dramatically change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think social media, the reality is here to stay. We've got to adopt a long-term strategy that enables new innovative tools to keep pushing that envelope about innovation. And again, leveraging video for us has been a big part. Obviously, thanks to Digi-Me, I think we can do that more consistently. But I think you'll see us continue to adopt new innovative tools similar to this platform that can help us tell our stories in more compelling ways, not just at a high level, but at a position level.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a digital representation of your job messaging. Some of these data points on the slide in front of you now are really compelling. You can really drive what we see, and what's exciting from my perspective, overseeing the strategy of our organization, is we're able to help the companies we're working with drive better efficiencies and better effectiveness through reduction in time to fill by as much as 33%, improving their quality of candidates by as much as 49%, and really driving quality candidates faster. And that's a large reason why we've actually partnered with organizations that are in the volume hiring, because they're using the tools and technology to drive better efficiency and ultimately be able to save dollars, put people in the right positions faster, and save recruiting dollars across their entire organization as they service their end customers. And I think consistency in the candidate experience has been particularly important to you, Sean, at Kiewit. Can you explain to our listeners a little bit about your early adoption of video and why that was so important to you?
Yeah, we were an early adopter in video interviewing at a time when I think we were confused on whether or not it was Skype or what it was. We've had a lot of different opinions about it, but it was clearly a need from a business standpoint to evaluate a faster and a cheaper way to execute the vetting process early in that life cycle. And so for us, we sort of came to realize how powerful it is and how it's improved time to fill, quality hire. We've improved our recruiter resources across the board. And we still have continuous innovation and continuous improvement initiatives around video. But I think back when everyone else thought we were crazy and it was impersonal, and I think there's probably still some late bloomers out there on video in general, but now we face a similar junction, I think, with video, but this time it's not in the way of vetting, it's more in the way to engage and promote and tell our story at that position level. And so, I mean, we're definitely a believer in the value of video and how it operates within our recruitment function, and now we're really at the beginning stages of how do we tell these stories of these incredible opportunities we have across all sorts of diverse mediums and to diverse candidate pools in ways that are consumed at a faster rate, consumed at rates that are mobile, social, and video and text-based strategies. That all of these strategies that we can use, kind of talk to the effectiveness of video in general. So now it's less about video interviewing for us and more about let's get higher quality folks on the front end through the adoption of video in our recruitment process.
And actually, on the video interviewing front, I think what's nice about what you guys have developed at Kiewit is it's very consistent from start to finish. So you're using video, through the Digi-Me relationship to attract people on the front end, but then making sure that that's a consistent part of their process when they hit apply. And one thing that came to our attention as we're servicing organizations like Kiewit is that the candidates, kind of feel like they drop into that black hole after they apply for a job, and most of the customers that we're working with are ultimately consumer brands, and it's really important to them to make sure that they're creating a very positive experience for the candidates throughout the entire process. And so we wanted to help address that frustration on the candidate side, and we just rolled out and released. Kiewit actually is our first adopter of the candidate expectation video, which is ultimately to try to fill that gap and to explain to the candidates what's the next step in the process, and it can be really easily embedded into the automatic message that's coming back to the candidate from your applicant tracking system. But it's a visual story message of what's going to happen to them next, setting key expectations as to the process and what it's like in your organization.
Yeah, that's right, and I think this is key. The experience, I guess, from a candidate experience standpoint is like running a race with hurdles, and the more we ask candidates to do, i.e. applications, online profiles, and assessments and those kind of things, it's just more hurdles for them to have to jump over. And why not personalize that story, make it more consistent, make it better, while talking to the candidates very specifically. And I don't think we can do enough in this area, and I think are planning more innovations here to get better and to more personalize that experience, and not just the candidate experience, but the application experience in general, and really explaining that to them in a much more detailed, much more professional production. And for us, again, these are very fast turnaround productions that have been easily adopted and well received by the candidate populations that we continue to test these in. So for us, it's a great tool, and I would encourage folks to look at making your candidate expectation videos very specific about your organization and what they can expect out of your process.
So I'm going to share a little bit of your video, Sean, just so that the listeners can get a feel for what that messaging entails.
Thank you for applying for a position at Kiewit. Kiewit is one of the largest and most respected construction, mining, and engineering organizations operating in North America and Australia. With us, you'll have the potential to work on projects in 6 major markets. From railroads to tunnels, renewable energy to biofuels, you'll be part of a mission that's bigger than you can imagine. Since the application process can be a bit of a mystery at times, we want to give you a glimpse into what you can expect from Kiewit every step of the way. We are excited to introduce you to our fast-growing, collaborative, and amazing company. Now that we have your resume, our human resources team will review your qualifications within 3 business days. If you are selected, you will be invited to participate in a phone interview that will allow us to better understand your experience and allow you to ask questions about the role and Kiewit. If you are selected to move forward, we will conduct an asynchronous video interview. What is that? It's a structured video interview you'll do in front of your webcam when your schedule permits. This helps us beat you virtually, in addition to simply reviewing a resume and online application. Following the telephone and video interview, you will be invited to our office for an on-site interview to meet with the recruiting team and the hiring managers. You will be asked questions about your experience, your perspective, and Kiewit's potential fit for you. This is also your opportunity to get answers to any questions you may have. Depending on the role's need for additional information, there may be a second in-person meeting.
So it's really about setting that candidate's expectations and the process and what's going to happen next, because I know we definitely hear when we're talking about candidate experience, and there's so much conversation around that in our space right now, that it's such an important part of making sure that they're happy with the overall experience, whether or not we hire them to our organization, but making sure that they feel good about our brand and the process that we've taken them through from beginning to end. So I do want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the reporting aspect and how the right information has really allowed Kiewit to cue in on some of the top performing websites that are really driving top ROI for them. And they're not necessarily pay-to-play sites. So what we've seen pretty consistently across their metrics as well as other clients is social sites can easily outrank your pay-to-play post sites. So depending on the location and the position that you're recruiting for, Sean's team has access to real-time metrics through our content management system that give a side-by-side comparison of not just the websites that their videos are being viewed and applied and shared off of through their direct sourcing efforts, but most importantly, it's going to show detailed information on the candidate behavior and what's really driving the candidates to share and apply for those jobs. So they get detailed information as to the time and date stamp, the IP address the candidate's coming in from, and that can really allow them to drill down into the sites and when they should be posting their jobs out and where they should be posting those jobs to get the best ROI.
Yeah, and this example that you have, Lindsay, is it's an MBA Fast Track Associate that we had a campaign on. This is one position. You can see the sites, were views, how many of those were dropping off, and this was metrics that before the adoption of this tool we didn't have access to. So we can see at a position level really what's happening at a much more granular level. And for us, it's great data and great insight into various campaigns and how effective those views and those shares are happening. And I think you see where candidates are coming from better and really the overall effectiveness at a very specific position. So we can sit down with the hiring manager with this data and have a very compelling conversation and be really respected at the table relative to this, in this case, the MBA Fast Track Associate that we were hiring. So it's great ROI. It's great to have a reporting tool that can keep you driving back to the candidate behaviors and what's going on by position.
And what's nice about it too is it really can result in an overall reduction in the cost per hire. On average, view to apply ratios are about 10 times higher with video versus text. So not only are you getting detail on how to recruit faster, smarter, and more strategically for diverse talent, but ultimately you're ending up with a really significant reduction in cost per hire. On average, we see it impacting it as much as 56%. So you're creating better self-selection through the process with the candidates absorbing more information about your position and the culture that you represent, but you're also able to use those detailed tracking metrics to really do a lot of the heavy lifting on what the candidate behavior is, to Sean's point. So that can be not just about the sites that are performing the best for you, but maybe there's some areas, some sites that you're paying to use that are really driving up a high number of views, but ultimately not ending up, converting into applications or hires. So being able to track the candidates through that process and find out what they're doing, so that ultimately, your strategy is just the enabler to start the process.
Yeah, that's right. And I know, Lindsay, for us, I mean, the recruiting strategist had to answer some pretty tough questions from our executive and operations teams that said, quite frankly, what new and innovative things are we doing to tell our incredible opportunity stories and in new and more compelling ways that are frankly different than job boards and career sites, and don't talk to us about the website, and kind of what we've always done. And I think what we had to do is really look at tools that would help us with the consumer behavior of tomorrow, be ready for that and be ready for that out in advance in a much more innovative way than maybe others in our space are doing. And so this has definitely sparked a lot of conversation. We've seen a significant positive response from those that we've elected this pilot program, and so we continue to be optimistic that it's going to continue to innovate our opportunities in more compelling ways, more engaging ways. And I think that was really the message for today for everybody on the call, is that we're all real HR and recruitment leaders in this space, trying to influence tools and technologies, and we're a network of people that are engaged, and I think the membership in general is in-house, whether you're in-house agency or independent recruiting or HR, across all those levels. I mean, we've got to provide conversations about new and innovative products and tools. And for me, this has been as big a game changer as video interviewing has been. It's just on the front end of how we socialize and recognize and tell our stories at a compelling way down to that position level. And so I would encourage anybody, if you have any questions from Kiewit or my standpoint, I would be open to take those. But that's sort of what my motivation today in helping to bring this webinar with Lindsay today. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, we definitely hope that you found today's session educational. We would like to, answer any questions that you have. I also want to offer up that we did develop a special promotion as Digi-Me is a sponsor of the webinar with Recruiting Daily. So if you go to digi-me.com/promo, the website that you see up on the screen. You can check out an offer that we put together for Recruiting Daily.
Does that count for me too, Lindsay?
Good question, Sean.
Thanks for your time.
So happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Great. Well, thanks again to both Sean and Lindsay. It's been a really interesting look at some ways to leverage video and data to kind of increase some diverse talent for some of us out there in talent acquisition. We've had a couple of comments, a couple of questions coming in through our Twitter feed and through our question and answer little pane there. So we're going to get to as many of those as we can in the time that we have remaining. I do want to call out a couple of people. Thank you for all the Twitter love out there. Artisan Talent New York, thank you for following with us today. Chrissy Nefse, thank you for engaging with us. Kevin Marasco, thank you for being on here with us. Jonathan Graham, thank you as well. If I missed anybody else there, keep sending us tweets. We love to see members, you guys engaging with us and letting us know what's going on. But why don't we go on to the first question that I had coming in. This question was from one of our Twitter members. They DM'd me this, but the question is, I want to be authentic, but my workforce is predominantly white. How can I leverage video to engage diverse candidates with my current workforce? Any advice? Maybe Sean, we can start with you, and Lindsay, maybe you can weigh in too of what you guys would do in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I would have a targeted cultural campaign if that's how you're trying to do it, and it's to whatever degree that you find appropriate to tell. Again, I'm thinking at a very position-specific level. One of the things that they do offer too is a cultural insight video, which is really a 3-minute high-impact sort of video story, if you will, about a certain segment or position or even vertical. And our thought is that because we represent multiple brands within Kiewit, even internally, some carry the Kiewit name, some don't. They're all wholly owned subsidiaries. And so if you're the face of talent acquisition for those different districts, as we call them, it can be very hard. And so our inclination is that we need to leverage the cultural insight videos to help tell that cultural story at that specific district level. We think that'll be a lot more effective, and being able to help with the on-air selection and the script writing can really be a powerful tool. And you don't have to be a professional video production. I mean, I'm not Steven Spielberg anymore than a script writer, but I'll tell you the folks that we've leveraged with the platform have been super helpful. And again, at the speed of business, I can't tell you that enough. It's been mind-blowing how fast these productions get turned around and how you can have real compelling information to share with your business. So.
Yeah, and I would just, I think that was a great answer, Sean. I think I would just back that up with, don't be scared to start somewhere. Even though your organization might not truly represent diversity now, which diversity isn't just about, white or not white. It goes so much deeper than that. But don't be scared to start it. I think having diversity as part of your messaging, whether it's, in a job-specific format, we use professional on-air talent, so a company can leverage specific initiatives, if they have a specific demographic that they really want to target hiring, whether it's by, age, color, gender. That's something that they can use in targeting their messaging on a job-specific level, but also, like Sean mentioned, storyboarding and creating that cultural message about who you are and who you want to become. So one thing I've seen, even just with technology updates, organizations being happy to share with, the younger generations or whoever they want to target, who they're trying to become, and getting away from maybe like a stodgy feel or, changing who they are as a culture. So I think that can be just as important as, who you are today.
Good, great answers, member. I hope that helps out. If you've got other questions, feel free, PM me again. I'll be glad to try to help out. I think we have time to squeeze another question in here. This is coming in from Jonathan Graham. Jonathan, again, thank you for engaging with us. Thank you for the question. Says, excellent webinar, thank you. And he asks, do you track candidate satisfaction? And if so, what has been the reaction to the video interview part of your process?
Yeah, I mean, we do. Video interviewing is, be a different discussion probably than maybe what we're talking about here. But what I would say to answer that is, I think you'll find a significant amount of people that find it, it's video interviewing, right? I don't think anybody dreams of going through that process ever. But I think to the video point we made earlier, the more you can try to help, demystify that experience. I know our partnership with HireVue has been, and there's many other vendors out there, but I mean, Kiewit's been aligned with HireVue, and I think they've done a great job of helping us continue to stay in front of that challenge, right? I don't think it's a challenge that ever goes away, and I'm not sure there's a silver bullet, but at the end of the day, I can tell you the results in executing that solution are real, and you really can't put a for sale sign on the value it does, depending on what kind of culture, I guess, and what kind of operational load you have. But for Kiewit, the size, the complexity, the geographic dispersion that we have with our positions, yeah, we measure it. I think for the most part, we see the majority of candidates in some of the questions we select actually get it, and they understand, and they comment to that actually in their video. Now, either that's what we're hearing, or they're just saying what we want to hear in the process. But it's been a good partnership that I think we've been able to continue to see that innovation since our early adoption in really early 2008. So for us, this is probably our third generation, and we're continuing to innovate the recruitment video space. But for us, this year had more to do with video recruitment marketing, if you will, in how we tell position stories long before the recruitment interview that adopts video. This was pre-video interview, more how do we tell that position story.
Great point, Sean.
I would just back that up with, we obviously use video internally here at Digi-Me to recruit, and we're always looking for young, highly talented professionals to join our organization because we're growing very rapidly ourselves. And I just hear, especially from the younger talent that we onboard, how much more compelling they found the video job messaging versus, reading a text about a job, that it really spoke to them and their generation. They could relate to it much better. So it's interesting, even just, for our internal positions, not just servicing our customers, but to hear and be able to gauge and measure the candidate response. It's definitely much more positive. It's overall, as consumers, how we're used to absorbing content, through mobile, through video. So I think it just keeps that consistency.
Really great advice on that. But members, I'm afraid that we have run out of time for today's webinar. I don't want to shut anybody down, so if you guys would like to continue the discussion over on Twitter using that hashtag #videois, again, that's VIDEOIS, please feel free to join me over there. I'll be hanging out on Twitter. I'll be answering questions, connecting with anybody who was on the webinar today, and if there's anything else they can do to help, definitely reach out. I'd be happy to. I do want to say one more thank you to our guests, Sean and Lindsay, and to Digi-Me for sponsoring today's content. But of course, members, the biggest thank you of all goes out to all of you. You guys are the reason that Katrina and I love doing this and get a chance to interact with you. So thank you for choosing to spend one of your hours here with us in the Recruiting Blogs community. We hope to hear you and see you on another webcast again soon. I'm going to wish everybody a great day, and we should be able to have the on-demand version of today's content ready for you guys. Give us about 2 days, but if you loved what you saw, there were some great statistics. We're going to have that slide deck up and a video so you can rewatch that content. Just give us about 48 hours, and it'll be up on the site where you're registered. But a pleasure to spend an hour with everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and hope to hear you and see you again on another webinar with us soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.